Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Unit 3 WebEx. Today, we're going to talk about using persuasion in writing, and I'm going to share with you 10 different techniques for integrating these persuasive elements into your text. I want to start out by just pointing out that none of this information is actually new to you. If you think about it, you're already very familiar with using persuasion in your day to day life. So we begin understanding persuasion when we're very small children and we start to mimic the adults in our lives. We might make an argument like this: if I can eat this cookie now, I promise I'll eat all of my dinner later. Or we might say something like, if I can go outside and ride my bike now, I'll pick up my room later. So, what we're doing there is using logos. We're appealing to our parents' logic. We're offering something of value to them in return for something of value to us. So, we've mimicked that at a very young age. And then as we get a little bit older, we start to tap into the emotional aspect of persuasion. We use pathos. So we might make an argument as a teenager saying something like, I need to drive a Ford F 150 to keep me safe on the roads. You wouldn't want to put me out there in just a small little two-door compact vehicle. What if I was in an accident? I need to be protected. So we're bringing together both logic and emotion the older that we get. Then, as adults, we start to work in the sense of credibility, building that on top of logos and pathos. So, in this example, it says, I deserve a raise because of my work ethic and successful project completion. So, you can see here we've used the word deserve, which is going to play on the emotions of the reader. And then we've also used logic because we're offering reasons why we deserve the raise, and they're logical and normal reasons. So, work ethic and successful project completion. And then we're building credibility too, simply because we have been able to complete projects successfully. Like anything else, persuasion takes work. It doesn't just happen. Even though we do it all of the time and we're familiar with how we use it, it has to be done with intention in writing. So, the first tip that I have here is to establish credibility and be authoritative. And up on the top, there's four items listed: qualifications, connections, research, and background. So, the first thing you want to think about is if you have any relevant qualifications to set yourself up with establishing the credibility. Most of the time, we don't. That's the truth. Not many of us are content experts or have doctorates in any certain field, so we don't necessarily have the credentials to establish credibility by ourselves, and that's okay, because if we don't, then we can emphasize our connection to the topic. So in the case for unit 1, Joe's connection to the topic is that he's a manager at the company and he's seen some positive results from using the fitness center. So that's a way to begin building credibility. Next, you can pull in research. So that's taking other experts who do have the credentials that you're lacking and bringing their words or their arguments into play to show that you are, in fact, becoming an expert by learning what the experts are saying. And then finally, bringing up the background information is definitely necessary to establish your credibility. We always want to do two things with the background information. One, we are orienting our reader to the document. Even though, in this case and in many cases, the reader knows what the document is because they've requested it or they're expecting the information, that doesn't mean that they're prepared for it the moment that they start reading the first line. You want to ease the reader in by reminding them of the reason that you're writing. That's number one. Number two, doing this and providing the background information reiterates that you're on the same page and sets the tone and the platform for everything that's to come. So, all of these things work together to establish your credibility. When you're working on being authoritative, your tone is really important. So you don't want to be this guy because he's really aggressive. So he's got aggressive body language. You could tell that he's probably being loud. He's pointing at you and he's telling you what to do. Instead, you want to be this guy. This guy is smiling, but not in an in your face type of way. He simply looks calm and confident, and he's giving you a thumbs up, like, good job, like, let's all head this direction together. So it's a much more appealing approach to be assertive, like the man on the right, than it is to be aggressive, like the man on the left. In between, I don't have a picture for this one, but in between these two is kind of a wishy-washy type of tone, which you don't want. The way that we end up having a wishy-washy tone is by using statements like I believe or it is my opinion. When we use these statements, we discredit everything that comes after. So it's normal to write with these statements when we're first putting something down on paper, but when you go back in and revise, you want to simply cut them out. They're not necessary to make your sentence work, and all they do is undermine your credibility. Don't worry, tip one is the longest one. So we're on to tip number two. So a rhetorical question is often misunderstood. We've all usually heard the term rhetorical question, but we don't understand what it means. So the purpose of a rhetorical question can be best understood, I think, with this example. In a classroom full of students who are being unorderly and loud and not obeying instructions, a teacher will often say something like, "Do you want to stay inside for recess today?" She's not asking that question because she actually wants to know the answer. She's asking the question to elicit a specific response, which is for the children to stop being unruly, to be quiet, and probably to take their seats. So, in a business context, we can use rhetorical questions like these. Would you like the company to make more money? The answer is obviously going to be yes. You're not looking for the answer. What you're doing here is looking for the response of getting the reader in a positive mind frame. You want the reader to be thinking, yes, tell me how we can make more money. So, this little series of questions just gives you some ideas that you could use to develop more specific questions for your particular piece of writing. Tip number three is to use repetition. I don't mean this literally, I mean that you're repeating key words, key ideas, key phrases to build a theme. So in this example, I'll read through it really quickly and then I'll point out how the underlined phrases and words help set the theme. It reads, I deserve an A on this assignment because of the hard work I've done. Over the past 2 weeks, I have spent countless hours researching and brainstorming. Even though I was initially confused, I reviewed the instructions and asked questions until I was on the right track. I believe my efforts have earned me an A. So we can see that on the front end, we're using the word deserve, and on the back end, we're using the word earned. Both of these words have similar meanings, and they really help to keep the reader focused on everything that the writer is asking for. The other underlined phrases, hard work, countless hours, and I reviewed the instructions and efforts, all of these are evidence of why the person deserves slash has earned the A. So there's no way for the reader to forget what the writer is talking about in this paragraph. And you want to make sure in your own paragraphs that everything is focused and everything is working together in a thematic way. Tip number four is to be consistent. So this applies A to your tone, where you want to be assertive throughout the entire memo. And also, if you take a very positive approach where you're including really exciting facts and statistics and using upbeat and positive words, you want to keep that consistent throughout the memo as well. On the other hand, if you're using a little bit more, let's say, of a scare tactic, where if we eliminate the fitness center, we might see a decrease in efficiency and, in fact, start to lose money, then you want to keep that theme consistent all the way throughout your memo. So tip number five seems kind of obvious, but it's offer reasons. So you don't want to stop by telling your reader what they should do. You always need to follow up by explaining why. So in this case, we're telling Joe not just that he should keep the fitness center open, but we need to list off a number of reasons why. And then to go further, we need to explain why those reasons will benefit Joe, or I'm sorry, will benefit Zach and meet his needs. Simply said, explain yourself. Number six is use comparisons. Using comparisons is a really effective way to persuade your reader, especially if they're resistant to your idea or they're unfamiliar with the content that you're giving them. If you make a comparison to something that the reader does understand or is more familiar with, you're going to help get them on board and understand the ideas you're presenting. The two ideas on the screen here represent a visual comparison. So we can see that the gentleman is balancing on the wire. And I like to think of him as a mom and pop coffee shop. And he's got to be very careful not to take a misstep or lose sight of his goal, because if he does, He's going to fall into the water where we can see the sharks like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. And he's just simply going to be consumed by the sharks if he falls off the wire. So that's a really good business oriented comparison with a visual. On the other side, I've got a written example that reads, happy employees are like kids on Halloween, motivated to work hard for their rewards. So this is taking a business concept of employee motivation who want to work hard for the company and comparing it with something everyone is familiar with. Little children who will go out, whether it's freezing cold, pouring down rain, or snowing, to get those rewards, they're going to work hard. And that's because they're happy and they feel motivated. Tip number 7 is my favorite. It's agitate and solve. I like to think of any persuasive document as having a front end and a back end. And the front end is always about demonstrating the problem and getting your reader to find the problem as irritating as you do. So you're literally agitating the reader on the front end, shaking things up, and pointing out all the flaws in their logic without being obvious about that, of course. And then in the back end, you've got your reader really eager for a solution, and you go ahead and solve it. So you agitate on the front end and you solve on the back end. Number 8 is predict the results. You don't want to leave your reader with an open mind in a persuasive document. In other types of writing, sure, let the reader draw their own conclusions and make decisions. In a persuasive document, you are trying to make something happen. You want to tell the reader what to think about that and not leave them with any misconceptions or room for misunderstanding. So I provided you with 4 phrases here that can help you um, come up with some ways to predict the results toward the end of your document, of course, in the back end. I'm going to skip number 9 and just go to number 10. So number 10 goes along with number 8. Not only do you want to predict the outcome, you also want to predict your readers' questions and objections. This can be really difficult. What I recommend is that you take some time away from your draft that's finished, anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days, and then you'll reread your draft, but from the perspective of someone who disagrees with everything that you say. So, what you're looking to do is poke holes in all the logic, find all the flaws, and come up with any objections that your reader might have so that you can answer those objections within your memo. You don't want to let those linger or let your reader think about their objections. You want to put them aside right away. These are some phrases that you can use to help generate those types of thoughts. Number 9 that I skipped was simply remembering to use the rhetorical triangle of logos, pathos, and ethos. This memo for Unit 3 doesn't really have a good place to use emotion, but certainly you'll be using logos and ethos, and most persuasive documents will, in fact, use all 3. So those are the 10 persuasive writing techniques that I wanted to share with you. Please note that they're going to be relevant during our Unit 6 assignment, which is a proposal. So I'll remind you about that then so you can access the PowerPoint and recording. And now let's take a second just to clarify what your assignment is. So in part A of the assignment, you'll be writing a memo as Joe to Zach. Your purpose is to convince Zach and Zach alone that the fitness center should stay open. This means that you have to show him that it can be valuable. You should be writing professionally, but not ridiculously so. You have a relationship with Zach that's evident from reading the case, that Zach is personable, he's conversational, but keep in mind that he's a superior. He's up a couple levels of the corporation in comparison to you. Part B is a little bit different. So you're developing a PowerPoint presentation, and the PowerPoint presentation is not simply a reiteration of your document. What it is instead is a presentation meant to convince the board that the fitness center should stay open. The difference is in your audience. So this time, we know that Zach is part of our audience, but we also have audience members who may be very open-minded and, in fact, even in favor of keeping the fitness center open. We also might have some audience members who are really on the fence and need persuading, and we might have some people who think more like Zach. So you want to make sure that there's a slide or two for everybody in your audience. So keep that in mind. You want your PowerPoint to be a little bit more diverse than the memo. APA formatting is required for the 2 references that you're required to use in this memo. You want to use in-text citations and include a reference page. I don't cover anything more than that. At this point, you guys should know how to properly use APA formatting. If you're not certain about it, you should be able to Google it. It's not something that's hard to figure out. There's a lot of great websites out there. That being said, if you have a specific question, if you have a difficult source that you're trying to work with and you just can't find an answer, shoot me an email and I will definitely help you. A couple of tips that I will give you on how to score well on the memo and the presentation. The fitness center cannot sell memberships in the community. That's just an absolutely bad idea that you cannot write about in your memo. The reasons why are because it would present a tremendous liability and increase the insurance premiums for the company. And they would also need to build a new parking lot. You're not going to pitch an idea to Zach that requires an investment of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that is simply not permitted for this assignment. The fitness center should also not start charging employees. There's only 35% of them using the fitness center to begin with. If you start charging them, that number is going to drop, and we need to see the number increase. Make sure that you don't cite the claims department results that Joe saw as a study because it was not. It was not a scientific study done that is showing causal results. Instead, it's observations that a manager made of his employees. And it's a really good job to mention that. Just make sure you package it as what it is. Don't forget your formatting. You should use short paragraphs varying in length from 4 to 8 lines, not 4 to 8 sentences, 4 to 8 actual lines that you're counting on the page. Don't indent, use descriptive headings, and try to work in some bullet points for visual layout variation. Also, just to remind you, at least 2 sources required for this assignment. For your PowerPoint presentation, remember that your audience is varied and you don't know much about them, so be diverse. Don't forget Zach is part of your audience. Don't use too much text on your slides. So this slide that you're looking at right here is a really bad slide for your purposes. Does it work for a web-based class where I'm speaking information but also not present, so you can't see me and I need to give you something to look at and you might be taking notes? So I develop a slide with a lot of text because my purpose is different than yours. Your purpose is to engage your audience visually while you're standing facing the audience with the screen behind you. If you present them with a slide like this, they won't know if they should look at you or if they should read the slide. So again, you're looking at a bad example. Do you want to use bullet points? Sure. Do you want to use nothing but bullet points? No. And I'm going to show you a quick example of a good looking PowerPoint before we sign off here in a minute. And that example will show you to vary the layout of your slides, and I'll also show you where the narration/notes could go. Some due dates for you. Your planning log, I bumped that out again like I usually do. It's actually due Friday the 29th by midnight. Your memo and presentation, the final assignments, are due Sunday, October 7th, also by midnight. And you guys know I'm flexible with that. If it's a couple hours late, no big deal. And as always, I'm happy to review drafts of your work. You can just shoot me an email with your assignment. If you have specific questions, go ahead and ask them. You guys have a great day, and that's supposed to be my sign-off message, but I do want to show you the PowerPoint. So stay with me for one more second while I open this up. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Extra Mile fitness group example. And this is a student example. He did a really great job with images and varying the layout on each slide. And we can tell that if you'll just look over here on the left-hand side where the slides are laid out vertically, you can see that no 2 slides are alike. There's also no slide with a tremendous amount of text on it. So we've got images that support the text, and the text is all key ideas. What's missing from this presentation is notes. So when I receive a presentation like this, and I look at this slide, all I can tell is 3 key reasons why we need an app. I don't know who we are, I don't know why the communication is outdated, and I don't understand how the community is suffering. Instead, when you turn in your PowerPoint presentation, you'll need to use the notes section down here to actually type out what you would say to an audience. It might look something like this. Sorry, guys. So all I wrote was, our company needs to develop an app to address our outdated methods of communicating. It might go on to say, using a paper system has resulted in customer confusion and our customer community suffering from on-time deliveries and follow-up messages. Something along those lines. So you're literally going to type what you would say to the audience in the notes section. That's option A. Option B, which I think is much easier and frankly is more interesting for me to listen to when I'm grading, is to record your narration. The way you do that is you go to the top menu, select Insert. All the way on the far right, we see audio, and then you'll just record audio. A small bar will pop up. You hit the red record button. It'll record your sound, and you'll be good to go. The final thing that I want to show you, and this is an option available to you if you have PowerPoint, the most updated version of PowerPoint through Office 365. And good news for you guys is that that's available for free to all Purdue students once again. They took that away the last couple of years and they've reintroduced it again this semester. So again, you can download Office 365 absolutely free and get all the updated versions of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Access, Outlook, everything. So you want to do that because then you'll have access to this option. So making good PowerPoint slides is really hard, especially when the requirements are that you use varied slide layout, different types of images, and don't include too much text. What you can do is add your content. I'm going to just do some sample content here. You can even add your visual. Let's go ahead and steal this one. And then what you'll do is go up to the Design tab on the top menu. And if you see here all the way over on the right, there's a button for design ideas. And this is not popping up for me right now. And it could be because the original format chosen or the original template chosen by the student does not permit the design ideas app to work. But maybe if we change it here, we'll be able to get it to work. Perhaps not. Either way, it's this grayed out icon over here that says design ideas. If you click on that, PowerPoint is going to present you with a list of really cool, professionally formatted slides. And you can select the different options and then you can modify them from there, or you can leave them as is. It is a really, really good feature, and I highly recommend that you use it for your PowerPoints going forward. That wraps up our meeting and the WebEx for Unit 3. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to reading your summaries. Have a great day.